Hello, dear students. In last class, we have discussed about the pathogenesis of cell injury. In this class, we are going to study about morphology of cell injury. What is morphology? Morphos means structural changes. Morphology of cell injury means we are going to study the structure of the cell in case of cell injury. So in this topic, we are going to discuss about morphology of different types of various types of cell injuries. Clear? So when coming to morphology of reversible cell injury, so we can clearly understand this topic only when we have clear knowledge about pathogenesis of cell injury. Clear? So reversible cell injuries morphology is generally termed as degeneration. So degeneration is a term used to denote the morphology of reversible cell injury. So what are the changes we'll find in case of reversible cell injury or hydropic changes? Hydropic changes means it occurs due to accumulation of water within the cell cytoplasm. That is hydropic change, and fatty changes, hyaline change, and mucoid change. So these are the changes we are going to see in case of morphology of reversible cell injury. Clear? And that first is hydropic change. Hydropic change means accumulation of water within the cytoplasm of the cell. And along with this, apart from this hydropic change, the other terms used are like cloudy swelling and vacuolar degeneration. Why this term is used? Cloudy swelling is used to explain the gross appearance of the affected organ. That means gross appearance means all together the structure of the organ, not individually a single cell. Clear? The other is vacuolar degeneration. Why the term vacuolar degeneration is used? Because it indicates because these vacuoles degeneration will takes place due to cytoplasmic vacuolation. That means there will be formation of vacuoles in the cytoplasm. And next is etiology. That means what are the reasons for hydropic change? This is the most commonest and earliest form of cell injury. It occurs due to bacterial toxins, chemicals, poisons, burns, high fever, and IV administration of hypertonic glucose or saline. So because of this, it gets these kind of changes will be seen. Clear? And the next is the how can what are the features we will be seeing in the cells? So these are the organs: kidney, liver, pancreas, or heart muscle are enlarged due to this reversible cell injury. The cells become swollen. As we already know that because of accumulation of extra large amounts of water, the cell may appear swollen, and the microvasculature is compressed. When the cell is swollen, adjacent microvasculature means small blood capillaries, they get compressed due to its large size. Clear? And small clear vacuoles are seen in the cells. Vacuoles will be found in the cells. These are the vacuoles. That means within the cell, empty spaces like vacuoles will be seen. And hence the term vacuolar degeneration is used. And small cytoplasmic blebs may be seen. Cytoplasmic blebs means that means it forms a nodules like thing in the cytoplasm, and the nucleus may appear plain. Because of this accumulation of fluid, the nucleus may appear pale. These are the swollen tubular cells. Compressed capillaries. Why? Because the cell size is increased, it will compress these capillaries. These red dots are there, no? They are. It represents microvasculature. So because of the increase in the size of the cell, as they are swollen, they compresses the adjacent microvasculature. Clear? These are the things we find in case of hydropic change. Then what is hyaline change? Hyaline means glassy-like appearance. So hyaline is glassy, homogeneous, isophilic appearance of material in hematoxylin and eosin stain. So these are the stains which are used to stain the cells. It may be intracellular or extracellular. The hyaline changes may be intracellular or extracellular. The intracellular hyaline changes will be seen as intracellular hyaline is mainly seen in epithelial cells. It is mainly seen in the epithelial cells. A few examples are as follows. Hyaline droplets in the proximal tubular epithelial cells in case of excessive reabsorption of plasma proteins. So when there is excess absorption of plasma proteins, there will be intracellular glassy-like appearance, and hyaline degeneration of rectus abdominalis muscle. This is present in the abdominal region. Especially it occurs in case of typhoid fever. The muscle loses its fibrillar staining and becomes glassy and hyaline. So because of the loss of these fibril-like structures, it becomes glassy and hyaline. Then extracellular changes. This is mostly seen in connective tissues. Intracellular hyaline changes are seen in epithelial cells, but extracellular hyaline changes are seen in connective tissues. A few examples are leiomyomas of the uterus and old scar of hypercollagenous tissues. Like in the old scars also we can see this extracellular hyaline like changes. So in this picture you can find these intracellular hyaline changes. So these are the plasma cells. These are the results bodies. That means which loses their fibrillar structures. So they'll appear like, because of that reason they'll appear like a shiny appearance. So the cytoplasm shows pink homogeneous globular material due to accumulated immunoglobulins. And this is extracellular hyaline. In case of leiomyoma of uterus, this is the hyaline material. So the connective tissue loses its structure and then it shows pink colored and like glassy appearance, like homogeneous appearance is seen here. This is seen in extracellular hyaline changes in case of leiomyomas of the uterus. Clear? In this, the pink colored thing shows hyaline changes. That soft, glassy like appearance that shows hyaline changes. Clear? And next, the other is next, mucoid changes. In the name itself, we can understand there is some kind of something it's related to mucus. So mucoid changes means mucus secreted by mucous glands is a combination of within the mucus. What are the things that are present? Proteins complexed with mucopolysaccharides. Proteins complexed with mucopolysaccharides. Together they appear like a mucin, like a mucus. Mucin is a glycoprotein is its chief constituent. So mucin is the glycoprotein which is the main constituent of the mucus. So mucus is normally produced by epithelial cells of mucous membrane and mucous glands. Even in the respiratory system, in the gastrointestinal system, there will be number of mucous membranes will be seen and mucous glands are observed. And connective tissues like in umbilical cord also these mucoid changes will be seen in case of mother and fetus. Epithelial muscle stains positively with periodic acid shift. That means past this is a stain which is used. I think you will study regarding these stains and all in microbiology. Connective tissue mucin is pass negative but is stained positively with colloidal iron. That means if you take this tissue and if you apply this PA stain, it won't get any stain. It won't get be stained, but it becomes positive with colloidal iron. When coming to epithelial mucin, it gets positive with PAS, that is periodic acid shift. Clear? In this way, we can differentiate whether it is epithelial mucin or connective tissue mucin. And then epithelial mucin, catarrhal inflammation of mucous membrane of respiratory tract. Generally, we find this in respiratory tract, alimentary tract, and uterus. So there will be inflammation. Inflammation in these regions can be seen as epithelial mucin. And mucin secreting tumors. That is example of ovary and stomach. In case of PCOS, that is polycystic ovarian syndrome, this is commonly seen there. There will be there will be damage to this epithelial mucin. Then connective tissue mucin, this is also called as myxoid or mucoid. This degeneration occurs in myxomas, neurofibromas, fibroadenomas, soft tissue sarcomas, etc. Myxoid is a synovium in ganglion on the wrist. So these are the examples of connective tissue mucin changes. So in this picture we can see this epithelial mucinous material. This is the mucinous material, cystodenum of the ovary, showing intracytoplasmic mucinous material in epithelial cells lining the cyst. So the epithelial cells lining the cyst, they will be their mucus is secreted. That is mucinous material is secreted. That can be seen in this epithelial mucin. In case of connective tissue mucin, myxoid change in neurofibroma. This is the myxoid material. That it's both are same, both are mucus contents only, but in case of connective tissue we call it as myxoid. In case of epithelial cells we call it as mucinous material. Clear? So all these things we can see only when they are stained with some kind of agents. Clear? So next is subcellular alterations in cell injury. So what are subcellular alterations? That means within the cell, the other cell organelles will be present. What are the alterations that occur in the cell organelles of a cell? So in these cytoskeletal changes, cytoskeleton, that means outer covering of the cell. This is formed by microtubules and microfilaments give a proper skeletal structure to the cell. So these will be damaged. That means defective microtubules in case of celiac Higashi syndrome leads to poor phagocytic activity, and defective microfilaments in myopathies and muscular dystrophies. So these are the examples. And next, lysosomal changes. Lysosomes contain powerful hydrolytic enzymes. Lysosomes are like pocket-like things. They have several hydrolytic enzymes. So heterophagy and autophagy are the two ways by which lysosomes show morphological changes of phagocytic function. So in lysosomes, these two functions will be taking place. That is heterophagy and autophagy. I think you know about this cell eating within the cell, and which is eating the other cells. That is heterophagy and autophagy. Again, in heterophagy, it is divided into two types: cell eating and cell drinking. That is phagocytosis and pinocytosis. Autophagy, that means cell lysing itself. Indigestible materials will be seen as residual bodies and some storage diseases. So these are the things we'll see in case of lysosomal changes. Mitochondrial changes in the because of cell injury. What are the subcellular alterations takes place in mitochondrial changes are mega mitochondria. That means in case of alcoholic liver disease and nutritional deficiency conditions, the size of the mitochondria will be enlarged. And alteration in the number of mitochondria, increase in hypertrophy and decrease in atrophy. That means number of mitochondria will be increased within a cell, and increase in hypertrophy. That means the size of the mitochondria will be increased, and decrease in atrophy. That means whatever the mitochondria which is damaged has to be removed, but that process will not be taking place. That process to eliminate the damaged mitochondria will be decreased. That is decrease in atrophy and increase in hypertrophy. All together causes increase in the size of the mitochondria. And oncocytoma in the salivary glands and thyroid. These changes are seen in the oncocytoma in the salivary glands and thyroid disease. So this is about subcellular alterations in cell injury. And now intracellular accumulation of substances or infiltration. Intracellular accumulation of substance is also called as infiltration. Infiltration means accumulation of something into a cell. That is called as infiltration. It can occur within the cytoplasm or nucleus of the cell. That means accumulation may take place even in the cytoplasm, or it may take even in the nucleus of the cell. So in the first heading, we will see accumulation of constituents of normal cell metabolism which are produced in excess. That means normally in the metabolic process, some substances will be released. So that gets accumulated more. That means when the metabolic products are produced more, they'll get accumulated. Example, accumulation of lipids causes the fatty changes and cholesterol deposits, and proteins and carbohydrates. So when these undergo metabolism, when they are metabolized in a large amount, they get accumulated. The other is accumulation of abnormal substances produced as a result of abnormal metabolism by certain enzymes. So sometimes during the metabolism, some abnormal substances will be released in case by during the metabolism. So accumulation of these abnormal metabolites is seen in this condition. Example, storage disease or inborn errors of metabolism. And next, accumulation of pigments. So in our we have endogenous pigments under special circumstances, and exogenous pigments due to lack of enzymatic mechanism to degrade the substance. So instead of actually these pigments, they has to be metabolized and then excreted, but instead of undergoing this process, they get directly accumulated into the cells. Example, in proteinuria, there is excessive renal tubular reabsorption of proteins by the proximal tubular epithelial cells, which shows pink hyaline droplets in the cytoplasm. What is proteinuria? Proteinuria means excretion of proteins, elimination of proteins in the urine. So instead of getting reabsorbed, they are eliminated. So because of excessive renal tubular absorption of proteins by the proximal tubular epithelial cells, which shows pink hyaline droplets in the cytoplasm. The change is reversible, so with the control of proteinuria, the protein droplets disappear. So these protein droplets will be appeared as hyaline, pink hyaline droplets. That means pink glassy like appearance will be seen. But once this proteinuria is decreased, this hyaline, pink hyaline droplets also disappear. So it is a reversible, it's a reversible effect. And next is in diabetes mellitus, there is intracellular accumulation of glycogen in different tissues because normal cellular uptake of glucose is impaired. So in case of diabetes, what will be there? There will be excess accumulation of glucose in the circulation. Why does it occur? When it is not properly utilized by the cells, then it gets accumulated. So this is about intracellular accumulation of substance or infiltration. Here we studied that normally the what are the metabolites which are produced in excess, they gets accumulated. That is one thing. And the other is accumulation of abnormal metabolites which are produced by metabolism of abnormal substances. That is second thing. And third is accumulation of pigments. Pigments has to be metabolized and excreted. Instead of that, if they doesn't undergo this process, they'll again accumulate within the cells. So these are the three types of intracellular accumulation of substances. So till here we have completed morphology of reversible cell injury. So what are the topics we have covered under morphology of reversible cell injury? First is hydropic change. Hydropic change means accumulation of water or accumulation of water, and also there will be presence of vacuoles. So it causes vacuolar degeneration. And next is fatty change. That is accumulation of fats. That is fatty change. So the morphological things are seen as because of this increase in the cell size of the cell, it causes compression of this microvasculature, and vacuoles will be seen in case of hydropic change. And hyaline change means that hyaline means glass-like appearance, uniform glass-like appearance is seen. It is of two types, intracellular and extracellular. These two can be differentiated by some stains. So hyaline droplets will be seen. The examples are given, and extracellular hyaline also examples are given. Mucoid change. Mucoid change, if it occurs in epithelial cells, we call it as mucin. If it occurs in connective tissue, we call it as mucoid or myxoid. So we can differentiate these two with the help of staining. PAS is positive for epithelial mucin. It is negative for mucoid or myxoid. So in this case, it gets positive with colloidal iron. This is the mucoid changes. And next, subcellular alterations. The cytoskeletal changes, there will be defect in the microtubules and microfilaments. In lysosomal changes, there will be heterophagy, autophagy, or indigested materials will be seen as residual bodies and storage diseases. Mitochondrial changes, there will be megamitochondria or alterations in the number of these mitochondria. There may be increase in the mitochondria and decrease in atrophy of the cells. So that is subcellular alterations. And then intracellular accumulations, accumulation of normal metabolites or abnormal metabolites or accumulation of proteins. So all this can be reversed when the etiological agent is removed. Then coming to morphology of irreversible cell injury. What is autolysis? Autolysis, it is disintegration of the cell by its own hydrolytic enzymes. Hydrolytic enzymes are liberated by lysosomes. So this is seen as homogeneous eosinophilic cytoplasm with loss of cellular details and remains of cell as debris. So because of this autolysis, all the cellular details will be lost and only the debris will be seen. So this we can see it as necrosis. That means it is localized area of death of tissue followed by degradation of tissue by hydrolytic enzymes liberated from the dead cells. So even the dead cells will release some kind of hydrolytic enzymes which causes the degradation of the tissue. Cell digestion by lytic enzymes. Morphologically, this change is identified as homogeneous and intensely eosinophilic cytoplasm. This change will be seen as homogeneous and intensely eosinophilic cytoplasm. If it is seen as denaturation of proteins, if there is no proteins, what will happen? It will be karyolysis, pycnosis, karyorrhexis will be seen. Types of necrosis. Morphologically, there are 5 types of necrosis. Like depending on how the necrotic tissue appear, depending on that it is of 5 types. Coagulative necrosis, liquefaction, caseous necrosis, fat necrosis, and fibroid necrosis. See this, it forms cytoplasmic blebs. This is the cell swelling, thereby it activates the inflammatory mediators and causes rupture of the cell by some kind of hydrolytic enzymes. Coagulative necrosis, this is seen as the foci are pale, foam, and slightly swollen. The cells which are undergone necrosis, they will be seen in this way. With progression, they become more yellowish and softer and shrunken. Morphologically, they will be seen as all the cytoplasmic and nuclear contents will be lost. The cells are swollen and appear more eosinophilic than the normal, along with nuclear changes. So these are the microscopical and morphological changes we find in these kind of cells. Liquefaction necrosis. So it is this area is liquefaction, means it becomes liquid like thing. So there will be liquefied center containing necrotic debris, and it is surrounded by a cyst wall. It appears in the microscopically, it contains like a necrotic cell debris and macrophages filled with phagocytosed material. Macrophages also will be seen. The cyst wall is formed. How the cyst wall is formed? Inside there will be liquefied center. Outside there will be cyst wall will be formed. The cyst wall is formed by proliferating capillaries and inflammatory cells and gliosis. In case of brain, glial cells, there will be gliosis will be seen. Proliferating fibroblasts in case of abscess cavity. Abscess means wound. If it is very severe, we call it as an abscess. And then caseous necrosis. This is the diagram of liquefaction necrosis. That means inside it will be completely liquid like thing, and total outside it is covered by wall, like a cyst wall. This is formed by inflammatory cells or multiplying proliferating capillaries, gliosis. So this is how it is seen. Caseous necrosis, they appear like dry cheese and are soft, granular and yellowish. So they are appear like dry cheese in this way. So which are the nuclear, the cells are there which are damaged, they will not be having any proper structure, eosinophilic, and they contain granular debris. So it contains epithelioid cells. So this is how they appear. And then fat necrosis. Fat tissue, when it gets accumulated, it appears like a yellowish white and firm deposits. They have cloudy appearance. Cloudy appearance, why? If we put a drop of oil into water, it also form a like cloudy appearance. So it have cloudy appearance when seen in microscopically, and that's surrounded by an inflammatory reaction, and it leads to formation of calcium soaps. That means when it reacts with calcium, it forms soap like thing. So if we make a dissection of that cell, it will appear like a amorphous granular and basophilic material when it forms calcium soap. And then fibrinoid necrosis, this is cloudy appearance. So this is the cloudy appearance because of this accumulation of fat. These are the mixed inflammatory cells, monocytes, macrophages and all. Fibrinoid necrosis, it is identified by brightly eosinophilic hyaline-like deposition in the vessel wall. In the vessel wall, we can see this hyaline, that means glass-like appearance and eosinophilic. And the necrotic focus is surrounded by nuclear debris of neutrophils. Here it is surrounded by neutrophils. Neutrophils will be surrounded during the neutrophils will be surrounding the debris, nuclear debris. Local hemorrhage may occur due to rupture of the blood vessel. As it takes place in the blood vessel, it may lead to local hemorrhage due to rupture of the blood vessel. So that also we can find. Next, apoptosis. Apoptosis means cell death. So you can see this. What are the differences between apoptosis and necrosis? Programmed and coordinated cell death. Necrosis is cell death along with degradation of tissue by hydrolytic enzymes. Causative agents are physiological and pathological process. Necrosis is due to hypoxia and toxins. Morphological changes. In apoptosis, no inflammatory reaction. In necrosis, there will be inflammatory reactions, that is macrophages. In fibrinoid necrosis, what we will see? Neutrophils will be seen. So always this inflammatory reaction always takes place in necrosis. Death of single cell occurs in apoptosis. Here, adjacent cells also gets damaged because of release of hydrolytic enzymes by the necrotized cells. So thereby adjacent cells also gets damaged. Cell shrinkage will be seen in case of apoptosis. Here in necrosis, cell swelling will be taken place. Cytoplasmic blebs on membrane. Here, membrane completely disrupts. That means breakdown of the membrane will be seen in necrosis. Apoptotic bodies will be seen. Here, damaged organelles because everything is lost. The cell organelles and the nuclear organelles, everything is lost. Chromatin condensation. Here, disruption. Phagocytosis by macrophages. Here, here also phagocytosis by macrophages. And then molecular changes. What are the molecular changes? Lysosomes and other organelles are intact. Here they undergo breakdown and cause liberation of certain hydrolytic enzymes. And genetic activation of some proto-oncogens, oncosuppressor genes and all. Here, so that means it may lead to like cancers. Here, cell death by ATP depletion, as it is caused due to hypoxia, no energy will be produced, no ATP produced. So, cell death may occur due to ATP depletion and membrane damage and free radical injury, as we studied in pathogenesis of cell injury. Here, initiation of apoptosis takes place by intra and extracellular stimuli, followed by activation of caspaseous pathway. This is a pathway by which apoptosis gets activated, as it is a programmed and coordinated cell death. So, these are the differences between apoptosis and necrosis. So apoptic cells, if we observe them microscopically, they'll be seen as oval shrunken mass of intensely eosinophilic cytoplasm containing shrunken almost normal organelles. Organelles will be normal, but it gets like it is shrunken, oval shaped. These are oval shaped and shrunken. So these are the thing. These are the changes we find when we observe them microscopically. So initiators of apoptosis. So these are the initiators of apoptosis. They'll activate they'll activate capsases, death receptors, growth controlling genes, and cell death occurs. This is a process of programmed cell death. And whatever the cell debris are there, it gets phagocytized by macrophages. So this is the molecular mechanism of apoptosis. And next is gangrene. Gangrene is a form of necrosis of tissue with superadded putrefaction. Putrefaction means excess secretion of pus is called as putrefaction. The type of necrosis is usually coagulated due to ischemia. It will be mostly seen in case of diabetic foot. So as there is no supply of oxygen or there is no supply of blood, this is caused. Due to ischemia, it is mainly caused. So this gangrene is of two types, dry gangrene and wet gangrene. In case of dry gangrene, it starts in the distal part of the limb due to ischemia. That means it starts from here, great toe, from due to decreased blood supply. It is commonly seen in those patients who are bedridden or who are stick to the bed and who are not having physical activity and in whom there are some vascular diseases in the limbs. So they will be having ischemia in this region. So it leads to dry gangrene. It spreads slowly upwards until it reaches a point where the blood supply is adequate. Till the blood supply is adequate, it spreads till there. And we can clearly see a line of separation between the gangrenous part and the viable part. So we can find the difference. So the morphological changes will be seen as it is dry, shrunken. Because there is no blood supply, it becomes dry. Shrunken, that means the tissue becomes small and it appears dark black, resembling the foot of man. It is black due to liberation of hemoglobin from hemolyzed red blood cells, which is acted upon by hydrogen sulfide produced by bacteria, resulting in formation of black iron sulfide. So when blood is lysed, it releases hemoglobin. When it is acted upon by hydrogen disulfide, it releases black iron like iron sulfide. That means hydrogen disulfide converts hemoglobin to in the presence of hemoglobin, it gets converted into iron sulfide. The color of this iron sulfide is black. Because of this reason, it will be seen in the black color. The line of separation usually bring about the complete separation. So this line of separation will be clearly explaining till which the part is unaffected. So we can surgically remove the part till there. And then what is wet gangrene? Wet gangrene usually develops rapidly due to blockage of venous and less commonly arterial blood flow. When there is a blockage in the flow, it leads to wet gangrene from thrombosis or embolism. Thrombosis means formation of a clot in the blood vessel. Embolism means whatever the clot is there, if it gets spread to the other, if it travels to the other part, then we call it as embolism. So the affected part is stuffed with blood, which favors a rapid growth of putrefactive bacteria. So because of accumulation of blood in a particular point, it will attract the bacteria to get to show its effect. The toxic products formed by bacteria are observed causing profound systemic manifestations of septicemia. So as it occurs in the systemic circulation, it causes septicemia. That means blood infection. And finally, it may lead to death. The spreading wet gangrene generally lacks clear cut line of demarcation. So here we cannot see any line of demarcation is not seen in case of wet gangrene. So as it occurs in the blood vessel, we cannot see clearly. It's swollen and dark because of putrefaction within the blood vessel. Morphological features. The affected part is soft and red, swollen, putrid and rotten and dark. So putrid means if we touch it, it will be like, it is completely filled with pus. So it appears soft and putrid, rotten and dark. And then gas gangrene. Sometimes gas gangrene is also seen. That means whatever the Clostridia bacteria, it releases when it gets affected, it releases some kind of gas which can enter into the tissues through. So this Clostridium is a gram-positive bacteria. It enters through contaminated wounds, especially in the muscles, or whether if there is any complication of any open surgeries like in colon. It contains Clostridia. It releases various toxins which produce necrosis and edema locally, and are also observed producing profound systemic manifestations. Whatever the infection is, it shows some systemic manifestations like systemic infections, fever, and all. So gas gangrene, why it is called gas gangrene? Because this Clostridia releases its toxins in the form of gas, so we call it as gas gangrene. And the morphological features are grossly the affected area is swollen. So the affected area will be swollen, edematous, painful, and due to bubbles within the tissue. Subsequently, affected tissue becomes dark, black, and foul smelling. In all these necrosis, we will feel in the same things. So this is the differences between dry gangrene and wet gangrene. Then coming to cellular adaptations, when the cellular adaptations occur, so they occur when it is compulsory and the injury is cellular and the etiological agent is for continuously for long duration of time. Atrophy means decrease in the number or decrease in the size of a parenchymal cells of an organ. So if it is only if cells number is decreased, we call it as hypoplasia. If it is the total size is decreased, we call it as aplasia. In morphological features, as it is in decrease in the number or size, the organ is small, often shrunken. The cells also may become smaller in size, but they are not dead cells. They will be functioning, but their size will be decreased. Shrinkage in cell size is due to reduction in the cell organelles. So why cell size is decreased? Because of the decrease in the cell size of the cell organelles. Then what is hypertrophy? Hypertrophy means hyper means increase in the size of the parenchymal cells. So without any change in the number of cells will not be affected. The affected organ is enlarged and heavy. So the muscle fibers as well as of nuclei, everything will be enlarged. Because of this, there will be increased protein synthesis and increased number of organelles like mitochondria, ER and myofibrils, everything will be increased in case of hypertrophy. Then coming to hyperplasia, hyperplasia means increase in the number of cells, number of parenchymal cells, resulting in enlargement of the organ or tissue. When coming to hypertrophy, the size of the cell is increased. Here, the number of cells is increased. Hyperplasia occurs due to increased recruitment of cells from Z0 phase. This is a cell cycle in this phase it is seen. Pathological features, there is enlargement of the affected organ or tissue and increase in the number of cells due to increased rate of DNA synthesis and hence increased mitosis of the cells. And what is metaplasia? Metaplasia is defined as one form of the tissue, reversible change of one type of epithelial or parenchymal cells to other type of epithelial or parenchymal cells. Usually in response to abnormal stimuli. When there is an abnormal stimuli, epithelials, one kind of the epithelial cells, they may convert into other kind of epithelial cells, or one kind of these mesenchymal cells will be converted into other kind of mesenchymal cells. This is called metaplasia. Metaplasia means conversion of one form of the cells to the other form of the cells. Then what is dysplasia? Dysplasia means disordered cellular development. That means there is no proper growth, there is no proper increase in the growth of the cells. It is often accompanied with metaplasia and hyperplasia. So disordered. So in hyperplasia, increasing the number of cells. In metaplasia, one form of cells will be converted to other form. So this two comes under dysplasia. That means these two, there is a disordered cellular development. So it is also called as atypical hyperplasia. It occurs most often in the epithelial cells. It occurs mostly in the epithelial cells. Then differences between metaplasia and dysplasia. So this is the differences between these two. One type of cells is converted to the other. Here disordered cellular growth. Here mostly epithelial cells are squamous, columnar cells, mesenchymal or osseous and cartilaginous tissues. Here squamous cells may be converted into columnar cells. Osseous tissues may be converted into cartilaginous tissues. Here only epithelial cells are involved. Tissues affected are bronchial mucosa, uterine endocervix and other mesenchymal tissues. This is mostly seen in case of cancers. This dysplasia is seen in uterine cervix and bronchial mucosa. Cellular changes are mature cellular development. Here disordered cellular development. History reversible or withdrawal of stimulus. So here it may progress to higher grades of dysplasia or carcinoma. Dysplasia may convert into carcinoma. So these are the differences between metaplasia and dysplasia. Once go through all these topics, and if you have any doubts, you can feel free to ask me. I think everyone understood this topic. Clear with it? Thank you.